Hello and welcome. Today we'll be making this granny square balaclava and we'll be doing it out of these granny squares and we'll be making a total of 8. And we're going to start off round 1 with our first color. Mine is this green one here, and we're going to start off with a magic ring. If you don't know how to do magic ring, I do have a brief demonstration after this of how you can start off. So once we have our magic ring started, we're going to go ahead and chain 4. Your first chain 3 is going to count as your first double crochet, and the 4th chain is going to count as your first chain 1 space. And then into the center of your magic ring, magic circle, we're going to add 1 more double crochet followed by 1 chain. So now you should have your 2 double crochet and 2 chain 1s. So next we're just going to continue this in the round until we have a total of 8 double crochet and 8 chain 1 spaces. And here we have our 8 double crochet with our 8 chain 1 in between each space. And then we're going to pull our magic ring closed and slip stitch to the top of our first chain 3 to close the row. Then we're going to cut off and tie in our end. And now I'm going to show you the second option. If you don't know how to do a magic ring, we're going to make a slip knot. We're going to then chain 4. Then slip stitch into the first chain space that we made to close and make a ring. Then we're going to chain 4 again. And then insert 1 double crochet into the center, not that first chain space, but the center. And then chain 1 and repeat this until the end of the row for 8 double crochet with a chain 1 space in between. And then we'll end the row the same way by slip stitching to the top of your first chain 3 space and cutting and tying in your ends. And now we are starting row 2, where we are going to add 1 single crochet into each chain 1 space with a chain 2 in between each. You can start in any chain 1 space you desire. If you do not tie on the way that I am here, you will just add 1 single crochet into the space, followed by chaining 2 and adding another single crochet into your next chain 1 space from the row below, chain 2, and we're going to repeat this throughout the entire round. So now at the end, we have done our last chain 2, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of the first tie on or chain 1 space, and you should have a total of 8 single crochet with 8 chain 2 spaces total. And this is what it should look like. And now we're starting row 3. So we're going to be working in each of these chain 2 spaces. So each chain 2 space from the previous row will receive 1 puff stitch, chain 1, 1 puff stitch, chain 1. So we're going to start by tying on to any chain 2 space. And then we're going to chain 3. And we're going to pull up the loop 4 times. Then go ahead and pull through, chain 1, and pull up 4 more loops for 1 more puff stitch into the same chain 2 space. And then we're going to pull through all your loops and chain 1. Then we're into the next chain 2 space. We're going to pull up 4 more loops for 1 puff stitch. Pull through all your loops, chain 1, and then in that same chain 2 space we're going to add 4 more loops, pull through, and then chain 1. So we're going to repeat adding 2 puff stitches into each chain 2 space for the rest of the row. So here we should have a total of 16 puff stitches with 1 chain 1 space in between each. So to end this row, we are going to slip stitch to the very top of our first puff stitch, slip stitch that close, cut off, and sew in your ends. And now we're beginning row 4. We're going back to that cream colored yarn and we're going to add a single crochet into each chain 1 space from the previous row, and we're going to chain 2 in between each of those single crochet. So we are going to tie on in between in any chain 1 space. If you don't tie on in this fashion, please add 1 single crochet after tying on. So after we've tied on, we're going to chain 2, and then in the very next chain 1 space, which is between our next puffs, we're going to single crochet, chain 2. In our next space, we're going to add another single crochet, and then we are going to, you guessed it, chain 2, and then our next space, another single crochet, and we're going to repeat this throughout the entire round for a total of 16 single crochets, and then we will slip stitch to our first single crochet in the round to end. And you should also have 16 chain 2 spaces. So here I'm showing you our lovely chain 2 spaces where we will be working our next row, number 5 and 2. So tie on to any chain 2 space with your next color. We will be working using 3 treble crochets together in each chain 2 space. So first we're going to chain 4, yarn over twice, go through that same space, pull through 2 loops, pull through 2 loops, but leave 2 loops on your hook. Then in that same space, add another treble crochet by yarning over twice, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, then pull through all 3 of your loops to make 3 treble crochet together. Then we're going to chain 1, chain another, so chain 2, and then in your next chain 2 space, add 3 more trebles by yarning over twice, going into that space, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, leave 2 on the hook, yarn over twice, same space, go through, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, leave 3 loops on your hook, yarn over twice, go through the same space, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, then pull through all loops on your hook to make another 3 treble crochet together, then chain 2. We are going to repeat this in the round in every chain 2 space, so we will have a total of 16 3 treble crochet together for the entire round. Once we get to the end, we are going to slip stitch to the top of our very first treble cluster and then cut off and sew in your ends, and we will be done. And by done, I mean we're going to be done with the flower petals until we move on to round 6. So for row 6, we will be working in each of these chain 2 spaces from the previous row. We are going to start making our square. So we're going to start off by making a corner space like this one here, and then we're going to essentially skip / single crochet into 3, and then in the 4th make another corner. So we are going to be working with the cream yarn, like I said. So tie on to any chain 2 space to start. Then we're going to chain 3, add 1 double crochet into that same space, we're going to be adding 3 more treble crochets, not together, just single treble crochets. So here's our first treble crochet. We're going to add our second treble crochet all into the same space. And then we're going to add our third treble crochet. So we should have a total of 5 stitches, 2 double crochet, 3 treble crochet, all in the same space. Then we're going to chain 3, and we're going to work backwards from what we just did. So in the same space, we're going to add 3 more treble crochets and 2 more double crochets. So here's our first treble crochet, our second treble crochet, our third treble crochet, and then our first double crochet in the same space, and then 1 more double crochet in the same space to finish off our first corner. So now going into the very next chain 2 space, we're going to add 1 single crochet. Then we're going to chain 5. And then in our next space, our next chain 2 space, we're going to add 1 more single crochet, chain 5 again, and then in our next chain 2 space, we're going to add 1 more single crochet. And in this next 4th space, we are going to add another corner. So we're going to start with one double crochet, add another double crochet, and then we are going to proceed to add 3 more treble crochet into the same space. After your last treble crochet, we're going to chain 3, work backwards by adding 3 treble crochet into the same space, followed by 2 double crochet. And then once you do that, we will be done with our second corner. Now that we're done with our second corner, we're going to repeat in our next chain 2 space, add 1 single crochet, chain 5, and then in our next space we will add 1 more single crochet, and then chain 5, and then our next space after that will be another single crochet to end that before our next corner. So we'll do our corner next, and then our next 3 spaces after that will be our single crochet, chain 5, single crochet, chain 5, single crochet, and then the fourth stitch after that will always be a corner. So it'll be corner 3, corner 3, corner 3. So here we are at the end. So here we have our 3 spaces in between each corner, and now we have our last chain 5. Okay, and I just realized this here in this space that I skip, add 1 more single crochet before you slip stitch to the first chain 3 in the row. I just happened to accidentally skip this stitch, and I just realized now. So don't do what I did, do what I say. Thank you. Around 7, after you tied on to your first chain 3 of the row, then we are going to chain 2. That counts as our first half double crochet, and then in each stitch in the row around the entire square we are going to be adding 1 half double crochet in each stitch. So in each corner space, when we get to the corner space, we will be adding 3 half double crochets, then continue adding 1 half double crochet into each stitch. And when we get to a chain 5 space, we will be adding 5 half double crochets into each chain 5 space. Then go ahead and add 5 more half double crochet into the next chain 5 space. Then continue with your round of half double crochet in each stitch, adding 3 in each corner and 5 on top of each chain 5 space to end the row. So now that we have done our entire square border of half double crochet, we are going to slip stitch to the very first chain 2 we made to close the row, and then we'll cut off and sew in our ends. Yours should not have that big gap right there, as long as you don't forget to do that single crochet in that last stitch, and then yours should not look like this. And now we are working our last round, round 8. So I used this green color. You can continue with the cream. I just wanted mine to look a little bit more colorful. So this row will be all double crochet to make it bigger, so the bigger the square, the looser the balaclava is. The smaller the square, the tighter and more form-fitting it is to your head. So we just tied on into the corner space, and here we're going to chain 3, and in that exact same corner space we are going to add 2 more double crochet, and this will be our first corner. And then we will continue adding 1 single crochet across, but each corner space will have 3 double crochets in the one stitch. So our next stitch should only have 1 double crochet, and continue this all the way down the row until your next corner space, which you will add 3 double crochet. And here we are coming up on our next corner space. So out of the 3 single crochet from the previous row, it'll be that very center one that we add 3 double crochet in. And then just continue in the round exactly like this until you reach the end. And now we will place our last double crochet in the very last stitch, and then we will slip stitch to the top of our very first chain 3 of the row, and that will end the row. So then you can cut off and sew in your ends, and we will be done with our very first granny square. And now you'll repeat this process 7 more times for a total of 8 complete granny squares, and that's what you need for the balaclava. And once you have 8, we're going to start joining our squares together. So first we're going to work on the top part, which is going to be sort of the bonnet, and we're going to join 3 granny squares in one straight line. So 1 will be joined on either side, and 2 are only joined on one side. So kind of like this, the top is going to be on the top of your head, and the 2 sides will be by your ear, and this one will join a little bit later, but it will be at the back of your head. So it'll form this sort of bonnet-like thing. And then the bottom will be comprised of 4 granny squares stitched in a straight line, and we'll join those to the very bottom of our finished headpiece at the end. And now we're going to start joining our squares using the same color that is at the very edge of your granny square. Mine is green. We're going to be working with the right sides facing together. So when working, make sure that your wrong side is facing out. This is my right side here, and the other side was my wrong side. So we're going to make these face each other. So put them together like this so the wrong sides are facing out. And we're going to go ahead and get started into the corner. So make a slip knot. Find your corner piece, your corner spaces. And that one right there, we're going to stick our hook through and go into that same corresponding stitch on the back square. And we're going to join the corners with a slip stitch. Now the way we're going to join our squares is by going through the front loop of our front granny square, and then through the back loop of our back granny square, and then slip stitching it closed. So we're going to come in through our front, go up through the middle of that V-stitch of the front, and then in our back we're going to go through the middle of the V-stitch to the back loop, and then pull through and slip stitch. So we're picking up our front loop only of our first granny square on top, and then our back loop only of our back granny square, and then we're pulling that through and slip stitching it closed. And we're going to do this all the way till the next corner, and then we will be cutting off there. So here I'm going to walk you through our last 2 stitches, again picking up the front loop of the front square only, back loop of the back square only, pulling that through and slip stitching it closed, and then here we are in our corner doing the same thing, and then we're going to cut off, sew in our ends, and we're done here, and we're going to join another square. So that's the back, and this is what our front looks like. There's a little indent in between them. And so now we're going to join this square right here on the opposite side in the same exact way that we just did. Just make sure that your right sides are facing together while you're joining them together. So here we have 3 joined together. So this is going to be the top portion of your bonnet. So it'll be like this. That's your face hole. And in the back we're going to join the back of the head to finish off that sort of bonnet shape. And then we'll get to the neck portion after that. So we're going to be joining this along here. It's a little difficult to show it, but once we get started, you'll get the picture. So we're just going to join it like that along 3 sides. And we're going to start in this furthest side. Make sure that you have your wrong sides facing out. This is my wrong side because I can see all my stitches. So we're going to join in the same exact way that we have been. So we're going to tie on in the corner and then continue to join with the front loop, back loop, and then I'll join you when we're at this corner. Okay, and once we've reached our corner, after we've joined our first side, we're going to turn the granny square, and we're going to do our last join. So corner to corner, and then what we're going to do is we're going to skip the area that it's joined, so our little seam that we made, and then we're going to go right into our very first stitch of our next granny square. And then we're going to start going down the next side of our back granny square. And then we're just going to continue joining that same exact way until we're done in the next corner. And here we've reached our next corner, and we're going to do the same exact thing. After our last join from our last corner to corner, we're going to skip that seam that we made, go to the very first stitch of the next granny square in our line, and then on our back portion, go to the next stitch there, join through front loop, back loop, and we're going to continue this all the way till our next corner, and that's when we will cut off and be done with our bonnet portion of our balaclava. And once we cut off, this is what our top bonnet portion of our balaclava should be looking like. Here's a better view. So this is our back, our top, and our sides. And then this is where our face will go right here. And next we're going to work on joining our 4 granny squares that we have left. and this will be the sort of neck hole portion, if you will. So we're going to join in the same exact method of front loop, back loop to make 4 granny squares in a straight line. I'll meet you when we have all those joined. And now we're going to join what we just made, our 4 granny squares in a row. So our neck piece, we will be joining it closed like this, but we will join it like this after we have attached it to our bonnet piece. So that's just going to be easier to attach the whole thing. So this square will be in the front like this by your face hole opening, and then all the other squares will align. So one square to one square, this square to the back of the head square, and this one will connect to this other side. And once we have the neck connected to the top hat portion, we'll join right here. So in order to join these, we're going to start at one end, and this one will not be attached to anything. So we'll start at this corner on the right hand side with your face opening facing you, and we'll join these 3 squares together at their tops and bottoms the same exact way we've been joining. So slip knot, we'll tie onto this corner, make sure that your right sides are facing together. Slip stitch in the corner to start your join. And we're going to continue joining in the same way we have been, going through the front loop of the front square, back loop of the back square, pulling through and slip stitching closed. So we're going to do that all the way, joining all 3 until we get to that 4th square. And remember, when you reach our seams, to just skip the seam and go right into the first stitch of the next granny square, and repeat that process until all 3 are joined. Now that we have our top and bottom part connected, now all we have to do is join this last granny square to close our balaclava off. So we're just going to join this one side right here. So what we're going to do is right sides facing together. We're going to line up the 1st and 4th granny square of our neck hole. So leave this part open, and we're just going to join corner to corner from these 2 squares here. And once you reach this corner, we're going to cut off and sew in your end. So here we're going to tie on and join in the exact same way that we have been, with the same front loop, back loop. Just make sure your front sides are facing together. And now your balaclava should be all joined together. This is the wrong side, and this is what it should look like right now. And lastly, we're going to do some finishing touches by adding a single crochet border around the face hole area and at the bottom of the neckline. So this will just finish it off and make it look pretty. So we're going to tie onto this corner here and go all the way around with just 1 row of single crochet, just to sort of smooth out the edges. I'm switching to this blue color because, again, I want it colorful and I like this color. You can continue with the green or cream. You can make this thicker or add a ruffled edge, but I'm just going to keep it simple and do 1 row of single crochet. So we're going to tie onto this corner here. If I'm looking at it straight ahead, it is my right bottom corner. So I'm going to tie that on with a slip stitch, and I'm going to chain 1. And then I'm going to go work to the left first along the bottom edge, so where your chin will be, and up and around and back to where we started. So we're just going to add 1 single crochet in each stitch around the whole face hole. So even in our seams, you can go ahead and add a stitch wherever it will fit, just so that there's no gaps. And here we're adding our very last single crochet stitch, and then to end the round we're going to slip stitch into the very first chain space that we made, and then cut off, sew in your ends, and we'll get started on the neck portion. So this is what our single crochet border is going to look like. Again, you can add another row. The more rows, the more closed your face hole area will be. You can add ruffles, but I'm just going to keep this one row of single crochet. And last but not least, adding this single crochet border at the bottom. So we're just going to tie on somewhere near the back, so it's just a little bit cleaner. With a slip stitch, tie on to any stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch on and then chain 1, and then we're going to repeat exactly like the face hole. We're just going to add 1 single crochet stitch into each stitch space, and then when we get into our seam spaces from the join of the 2 squares, just add a single crochet stitch where you can. So you could probably fit 1 or at least 1 stitch in that space. And after our very last single crochet stitch, we're going to slip stitch our row closed to the very first chain 1 space we made, and then we're going to cut off, and then we're going to sew in our edges, and you're all done. Here's our border here. This is what it looks like before we sew in our ends. And that's it. I hope you guys like it, and thanks for watching. Bye.